Hey you guys, Matt Allen here. Welcome back to Tactical Bassin'. We've got the start of a beautiful day out here. We're headed bass fishing. Come along, it should be really fun. We're fishing a brand new lake today, and we're focusing on shallow water. I've got swim jigs, a frog, a wake bait. Of course, we'll adapt if we need to. Maybe we'll flip, maybe we'll worm, maybe we'll do something completely different. I have no idea. It's a big lake, miles long, shallow water. My starting point was easy. I came out of the boat ramp, I got up on pad, I started running, and I saw all these white birds over here. That tells me there's got to be some bait fish in this area, so I sat the boat down, and we're going to start here. Other than that, I know nothing, but this should be really fun. Awesome. Hey buddy, thanks for getting us kicked off. Nice swim jig fish, stunted. Check that out. He's got something weird going on there, but pretty little fish. Throwing that swim jig. I figured I'd just start out covering water. Those birds are right here. That fish, I mean, I'm in 1.5 foot of water, and that fish came from up there. That's really interesting. Nice little guy. He ate that chatterbait right up on the edge of that grass. Another chatterbait eater. I don't know if this bite will last all day or this is just because it's early morning, that sun is still relatively low, but we're gonna chase that reaction bite while we can. All right, it's time to make a move. So we've hit 3 spots, 3 different times I saw birds, came in on the bank, and I didn't necessarily catch the fish in front of the birds. Maybe they were related, maybe they weren't, but 3 bites, 3 fish, 2 on a chatterbait, 1 on a swim jig. But this is a large lake. Every bank that we've been on has been windblown so far. It's working, but it's not like those were giant fish. They were good fish, but they weren't giant. I want to see what else this lake has to offer. I don't want to be attached to that one pattern from the word go without knowing. There might be something completely different with bigger fish or a different area that's got better fish. We need to go find out, so let's make a move. All right, we've switched sides of the lake. It's a lot calmer over here. The first thing I've noticed is water clarity. So where we started, we had about 4 or 5 inches of clarity, and the water is like a coffee color, not even a tea color, a coffee color. Very, very dark. Now that I'm on the side that's not wind blown, it's more of a tea color and maybe 10 to 12 inches of visibility. Let me see. Yeah, 10 inches of visibility. Significantly clearer than the other. Whether that's good or bad, that remains to be seen. Right now, we're just exploring. go. Get out of there. Spro poppin' frog. Way back in the reeds. Just pop, let it sit. Pop, let it sit. Boom. Well, that fish bit like he was big. That was a cool blow up. All right, it's time for another move. When I say we're fishing shallow, we're floating this boat in that much water. What is that, 18 inches of water? We are fishing shallow. That fish is way back in the pads. Can you believe he fit that whole big old swim jig in that mouth? 1/2 ounce no jack swim jig, 5.5 swammer on the back. He had that thing choked. That's a better fish. There we go. On the chatterbait. Right up in the edge of the pads. Green pumpkin shad, 4.5 spunk shad on the back. That is such a fun bite. As the day wears on, it's definitely looking like swim jig versus chatterbait. You know, that frog might come more into play if I get more of this calm water. There's a lot of wind blowing, but we're in a pretty calm pocket right now, and I'm gonna see if I can carry on through here. It's really shallow. I don't know if you can see how high I have my trolling motor raised. This water in here is like that deep, but essentially what I'm doing is using a chatterbait and a swim jig as a 1-2 punch. Yep, it's fields of pads out here, miles and miles and miles, and if that's not something you fish regularly, it can be really overwhelming. What I try to do is find edges of that stuff. So like right now we're fishing the inside edge nearest the shore, also fish the outside edge, lanes through it, or anywhere that there's another kind of grass mixed. Just things that stand out. I mean, it's literally no different than going down a bare bank and then fishing the lay down tree, right? Giant pad field, one clump of something else, target that. But what I'm doing is I'm throwing the chatterbait on the edges. So right on the edge of all that stuff and pulling fish out. And then if I get into fish, I feel like they're there, I use that swim jig to throw back in an extra 20, 30, 40 feet into the pads to see if there's any more fish. I'm using them as a 1-2 punch. One in the open, one just inside the cover. And we'll see as the day goes on if one or the other stands out. I hope you guys saw that. Wow. That guy massacred that swim jig on the surface. Oh, that was just awesome. Missed him. He ate it on the surface too. That was cool. Got him. Frog eater. This is a Savage Gear frog. I've said for years, I think this is probably the best, if not one of the best, heavy cover frogs. It's got a good body shape, but it's a very dense material. It's not my favorite for open water, but when I'm in this thick stuff and I really don't want to be snagging those pads, this frog does a really good job of staying weedless. Whoa, hey big boy. You guys, look at the size of this gator. He's giant. That fish smoked that frog. Jeez. It's that same Savage Gear, but I switched colors. I've got into an area here that's fairly clear. Maybe a foot to a foot and a half of visibility, even though it's still tea colored. I went to that bluegill color. He smashed it. All right, guys, we're gonna wrap it up here. It is cooking out here now. It is downright hot. But I had a blast today. You know, anytime you go to a new lake, you have no idea what you're in for. And in a place like this, I mean, truly, you don't know where to start. You know nothing. But if you find those edges, you can piece it together and you can take miles and miles and miles of cover and break it down into bite-sized pieces that you can actually make sense of and then build a pattern. Today it was, you know, the frog actually came in there at the end and did pretty darn good, but for the most part, today was about the chatterbait and the swim jig. You know, the chatterbait, it speaks for itself. Throwing that on that Megabass P5 Deimos, we've talked about that rod before, but that 1/2 ounce jackhammer green pumpkin shad, 4.5 spunk shad. I mean, that's just the bread and butter of chatterbait fishing, right? I put that on because that's typically where I start, and then when it works, you just leave it alone. The swim jig, you know, when you come to a place that looks like this, I've got big fish on the brain. I don't know if you do, I do. So I started out with a no jack on a 7.6 extra heavy straight braid, you know, and I caught them on the no jack swim jig. They're all dirty jigs. The no jack swim jig, the standard swim jig, and then, you know, reality started setting in as I'm seeing the size of the fish, and we ended up with that compact swim jig there at the end. That compact is just a lot smaller profile. I'm able to throw it on lighter line, lighter gear. Even though I was still throwing it on straight braid, I went down to 50-pound braid and a 7.4 heavy rod as opposed to a 7.6 extra heavy. But that swim jig really is a 4x4 in these conditions. And you match the size of the jig. I typically throw 1/2 ounce. If the cover's super thick, I'll go lighter, but for the most part, it's gonna be a 1/2 ounce. And I'm choosing between that compact, that smaller hook, a standard, and a no jack hook, a super heavy wire hook, simply based on how big the fish are in that cover and how hard I think I'm gonna have to pull on them to get them out. But all in all, very straightforward. You know, we caught them on things that I would expect to catch them on here, frankly. I mean, nothing was a surprise. If we had run into some bigger fish, I would have put a bunch of time into the wake bait, but I just didn't see that quality of fish today. I would think they're here. It looks right, but we caught some good ones today. And maybe on a different day we'd get a big one, or maybe they're just not here. All right, guys, we're gonna wrap it up. I'll link all the gear in the video description for you. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you soon.